Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos, and I'm a life coach, relationship coach, and breakup coach. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing pain your ex feels, but won't admit. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Subscribe to my weekly support emails. The link is in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing pain your ex feels but won't admit. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will be surprised to know that it's not easy for them. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 pains that your ex likely feels, but won't admit. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is the phantom text. So this is a type of text message that you probably have never even heard of before. Okay, what is the phantom text? Well, I'm going to explain it to you now, and it's something that your ex-dumper has likely gone through and experienced, and also felt pain because of. Now, even though your ex-dumper became your ex-dumper because they ended the relationship and it was obviously on their terms that they decided the breakup needed to take place, it wasn't as if you wanted it to happen. Unfortunately, your now ex made that decision, and this is therefore where they are. So you might think, well, okay, they are my ex. The last thing that they are going to be wanting to do is send me a text. And this is where a lot of dumpers might surprise you. And that is because despite the fact they ended the relationship, it doesn't mean that they're not going to have moments or where they want to share things with you about their life. Now, maybe this is due to them regrowing romantic emotional attraction, it getting to nearly that necessary high point. If and when it does, that's when they want to reach out, and that is how reconnection can ultimately take place. It doesn't always have to be for that reason. It could be that they view you in a platonic sense, which as a dumpy, you don't really want to think of, but it could be the case. And again, if they view you in a platonic sense, there might be things that they want to share with you. So whether it is due to a romantic feeling, whether it is due to a platonic feeling, or whether it is just due to the way their life has been for so long. Patterns, their lifestyle. Something happens, they naturally would tell you first. So irrespective of the reason, they are almost conditioned to tell you things about their life, good, bad, or indifferent. And this is where one of the pains can come into your ex-dumper's mind that I refer to as the phantom text. And these are moments of where your ex-dumper is wanting to tell you something. Like I said, the motivation for why they want to tell you these things, that could vary. And not all of them are necessarily going to be congruent with reconnecting with you at this time. However, even if it isn't from a place of romance, they might one day get to a point where that romantic emotional attraction hits that high point, and then they would want to reach out for that reason. So just because they might reach out to you for a non-romantic reason, it doesn't mean they can't for romance in the future. But I digress. The phantom text. This is where your ex-dumper has moments of wanting to tell you things. And they automatically start typing a text or a messaging app or whatever they are using. They start typing something out almost because it just feels right. It feels natural. It's almost done in an automatic sense. Okay, sometimes they will literally be doing it without thinking. Other times they know full well that, of course, your relationship has ended, but they just kind of have that feeling that they need to tell you. So they start typing this text out, and then they get about halfway through, and then they think, actually, I shouldn't be doing this. Either because it was an automatic response and then it just hits them, or maybe they recognized full well that, of course, your relationship had ended, but they just really wanted to tell you, and they get halfway through this message, and then they think, you know what, I shouldn't be doing this. this would be giving my dumpy a bit of false hope when I'm not quite there yet. Maybe I'll get to that place, but right now, I'm not sure if I am. Or perhaps they don't think of it from that perspective, and instead they just think, well, my dumpy would be really angry if I was to message them, so I shouldn't be doing this. Or perhaps your ex-dumper is just thinking of themselves in this regard and believing, actually, well, I ended the relationship, and I need to be sticking to my guns. So they come to that conclusion halfway through this message, and then they stop typing. And in fact, they then start deleting. And in the end, that message is never sent. Hence, it is the phantom text, a text that was never sent, but very nearly was. In fact, sometimes these texts are so close to being sent, they are fully typed before they are deleted, backspace, removed, whatever you want to call it. Those situations happen a lot more frequently than you might think. And even if you then hear what I've just said and think, okay, well, how does that help me if my ex-dumper has almost tried to send me one of these phantom texts and then they haven't because they don't want to give me false hope? Well, how is that supposed to help? Well, first off, we feel in the moment. We live in the moment. When you two were in a loving relationship at the height of your relationship, I'm sure neither of you could have imagined splitting up. Sadly, it happened. Just as right now, your ex-dumper doesn't see you two being together as a couple. So we can see that feelings change in that regard, unfortunately, in a negative way, but it shows that feelings can change. And therefore, feelings can grow again. So even if your ex-dumper creates this phantom text situation because they decide, I can't send this, I don't want to give my ex-dumpy false hope, even if that is their reasoning, it doesn't mean that in the future they might not have regrown enough attraction to want to reconnect. So it doesn't matter as per why this has happened. The important thing is that it happens often. A phantom text situation, a message which is never sent, but often almost fully typed, takes place, and when the dumper decides not to send it, they often feel pain because they wanted to send it, irrespective of the motivation, romance, whether it was a more platonic type feeling, whether it was just something that they do. It is inbuilt into them, into their life, it is part of them, and they can no longer do it. And hence, that is where the pain comes. And something which is really interesting is that even if a dumper may have pulled back from this text due to them thinking, well, I don't have enough romantic feelings at this time, even if this was a coherent thought that they had at the time of sending and then stopping themselves sending this message, the interesting element is that this process can actually trigger them into missing you more and regrowing the extra attraction which is necessary. Because the pain of understanding that they can't send this text can actually almost send them and tip them over the edge into feeling enough romantic feelings for you which are necessary in the future to reconnect. So ironically enough, the phantom text can actually be the beginning of reconnection, and you as a dumpy would never actually ever know. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please give this video a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is they've lost their biggest fan. Now as a dumpy, you might not almost believe that your ex-dumper would care that you were their biggest fan. But the truth is, your ex-dumper is going to miss the fact that they've lost their biggest fan. You were their biggest fan, their biggest supporter. You gave their ego a rub, and you were always pushing them on that pedestal. Now, as a dumpy, you don't want to be doing that right now. Post-breakup, that is not going to help you. And the reason it's not going to help you is because we need your ex-dumper to feel loss. They can't feel loss if something is still there. So if you are chasing your dumper, you are not allowing them to understand your value as their supporter, your value as inflating their ego in a relationship. If you are doing that post-breakup, they're not going to be worried about the situation that you are both in because they are still getting all of the benefits. they can't have gold membership of you post-breakup. And that is why point number 2 in today's podcast is important to recognize. Because your dumper will feel pain. They will feel pain that they have lost their biggest fan. You inflated their ego. You showed them love. Things which might not even seem too much of a big deal can really hit your ex the dumper. Such as you laughed at their jokes. You don't understand how that can be such a big situation for someone when they go out into the world, tell jokes to new people, and nobody laughs. Your sense of humour was perhaps aligned, and if it wasn't aligned, you at least got them. You understood your ex. You knew who they were, and they knew who you were. They are now going out into that world, meeting new people, and I know that is something as a dumpy you don't want to think about, but it's not always all bad. Because if they do meet new people, realise nobody listens to their stories, nobody laughs at their jokes, nobody inflates their ego, and if you are not doing this from the sidelines, this is when they can really start to miss you. So when we're talking about pain that your ex-dumper will feel but would never admit, okay, this is probably one of the big ones. Because if and when they come back to you, they are not likely to say, well, I did meet a couple of new people, I went on a couple of dates, but nobody really seemed to kind of get me like you do. They're not likely to admit that to you, but it's going to be pulling on them. And it's not just from a romantic sense. Just the fact that they are spending time with different people to you, whether these are work colleagues, whether these are acquaintances, friends, old, new, whoever it may be, they're not going to have the same connection that they had with you. You made them feel loved. You made them feel as if they were the best person possible. You inflated their ego. You gave them everything they craved and needed, and now it's gone. Now, of course, there are some situations where somebody ends a relationship because they were not feeling the things that we're talking about right now. And this is a scenario that we have to look deep inside and really self-reflect. Did I make my ex feel like they were the number one person in my life? If you believe that you didn't do that, then I understand the struggle you might have right now, thinking, well, I never was their biggest fan, so how can this help me? Well, the good news for you, dumpies, is that even if you don't feel that you gave them everything that they needed, and hence maybe that was the reason that they ended the relationship, the fact is you still had a special bond. You had a romantic relationship. You will always be part of their life story. They will always be part of yours. So even though you might feel that you didn't give them what they needed in the relationship, even if that was said to you at the breakup, the fact is you had a connection which can't be replicated with anybody else because your situation was unique. And there were certainly things that your ex-dumper loved about your relationship and loved you. And therefore they can still miss things, even if they're not as obvious, even if it isn't that you felt that you were treating them like you were their biggest fan. There would be things, subtle mannerisms, things that you don't even recognize but would have kept your ex-dumper in the relationship for the time that they did. And those things, again, can't be replicated with anybody else. So try to stay cool, calm, and collected, dumpies, because whatever the situation is, your ex-dumper will not find this with anybody else. And this can be a real pain point that your ex-dumper is never likely to admit. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. This is the best and diamond level of support that I can provide. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the buildup of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is sleeping without you. Now, I'm not talking about intimacy here. And I'm also not even talking about the fact that your ex-dumper is now sleeping alone. What I'm talking about is the pain of sleeping without you next to them. And again, there is a difference. You as a dumpee, unfortunately, likely now know the feeling of not sleeping next to your dumper. It is a lonely feeling if you've been sleeping next to someone for a very long time and now you're sleeping alone. We feel it. You will sadly feel it. And they will also feel it. But on top of that, they will be feeling that longing for you, that missing you, because this was their choice. So it's not just about they are now sleeping alone. This isn't just about the fact that they are not sleeping next to you, which would have been bad enough, but this is because it was their choice. You as a dumpee didn't make this choice, and although that pain is there, it is something that you know you've done your best to try and rectify. Your ex-dumper has almost self-sabotaged. They've ended a relationship, they are now sleeping alone, they are alone in all kind of contexts, but additionally, they are missing the specific person of you. Even if you as a dumpee worry that your ex might meet someone else and might sleep next to someone else, again, they are not you. It's almost like point number 2 we were saying. You, as an individual, had a unique connection with your dumper that nobody else will. And the fact that they are not sleeping next to you, and it was their choice, is going to be something which haunts your ex-dumper for much time to come. And again, it's something that they are very unlikely to admit. The reason I know this is because dumpers have told me via my audio coaching service when they are trying to reconnect with their dumpee and they don't know how best to go about it. They often speak to me about what is going on in their life and the pain points that they feel.